Holy shit, that is a horrible story. Her name is Mary Vincent, and it happened in 1978. In 1978, Lawrence Singleton, then a 50-year-old ex-merchant mariner, picked up Mary Vincent, then a 15-year-old hitchhiker running from Las Vegas and her parents' divorce, and raped her. He hacked off her forearms with 5 swings of a hatchet and stuffed her, unconscious, to die in a concrete culvert near Sacramento. A court document described the indescribable. The next morning, 2 individuals found Mary Vincent wandering nude. She was holding up her arms so that the muscles and blood would not fall out. Under the lenient laws of that time, Singleton received concurrent sentences totaling 14 years for rape, attempted murder and sex offenses, the maximum allowed. Singleton, to the anguish of activists and the anger of communities where he was headed, served just 8 years and 4 months. How the fuck was 14 years the max allowed for all of that stuff? Whoa, pump the brakes right there. There's an unspoken rule on Reddit against necroposting. I cannot believe more of these types of people aren't erased once they hit the streets. How does the victim's parent not go out and just run the guy over? I know they shouldn't, but how do they not? Thinking it was a hitchhiker or person in distress. Weird, that's a horrifying tale. So I pull over to help and this sliced up posse want to kill me? Because he had fight with a bear? WT for fine tale. Yeah, I don't sense the motivation here either. Maybe he's jealous that you still have a face. I just have to add the most badass part of the story. When she realized her arms had been cut off and she was going to bleed out, she shoved her stumps into the mud surrounding her to pack the wounds and stop the bleeding. And then started climbing up the side of this cliff with her stumps. She is the definition of a badass.
How was she holding up her arms with no arm? The guy hacked off her forearms right below the elbows. I guess she raised them into the air. She explains it in another article. She remembered when she was a little girl. If you cut your finger, hold it up, said Mark Edwards, her longtime attorney and friend. She walked out of the woods with her arms over her head. Mary Vincent. Once Upon a Crime also did an episode on her, during their Survivor Stories series. Mary Vincent is simply amazing. Not only was she so tough and competent that, as a scared teenager who'd just been brutalized for hours and left for dead, she had the presence of mind to think, if I use the stumps of my arms to drag myself through the mud, it might pack the wounds and keep me from bleeding out before I find help. She wasn't even thinking of herself. Poor Mary just wanted to go to sleep, even knowing she probably wouldn't wake up again. But she couldn't bear the thought that, if she died before she could report him to the police, he might do this again to someone else. That takes an incredible human being. Also amazing to me, she has apparently said that she doesn't blame the 2 men who drove by without helping her. She said she completely understood. I know it's impossible to know how anyone would react under those circumstances, but I think her response shows a lot of compassion for her fellow humans despite the terrible things she lived through. She seems like such a badass, and despite all the amazing survival, which I couldn't have pulled off, her spirit and attitude was both relatable and exactly the kind of thing everyone should aspire to. Oh my goodness, yes. I went to YouTube and watched this episode. This lady is so freaking badass. There was also an episode I watched about a family who went hiking in the mountains and got attacked by bees. The story ended with this family doesn't go hiking in the mountains anymore, no shit. I cannot believe more of these types of people aren't erased once they hit the streets. How does the victim's parent not go out and just run the guy over? I know they shouldn't, but how do they not? The world is a very stupid place. Whoa, pump the brakes right there. There's an unspoken rule on Reddit against necroposting.